Not like anything modern lasts 100,000 miles, you know, they threw it away and put another engine in it. You go and see your quartermaster, so give me a new engine, I've broken that one, and they just throw it in. Which is why you get so many with odd numbers and all sorts of weird shit, you know. Yet another Harley Davidson that don't work properly. We've got circuit breaker loose, throttle stays open, clutch adjustment, grease up front clutch rocker, exhaust is loose, speedo jumps around, chain needs shortening, steering damper missing spring, speed issue seems slow, horn not working since respray, and compression test. Got points, new coil, and a rubber ducky float to put in it. So first thing to do is do a compression test and see what we've got. Doesn't feel like there's a lot there, but you should have about, with number 5 cylinder heads, you should have around about 70 psi. Right, the choke valve's open, full throttle, so that's letting all as much air in as it can get. Full throttle. Right, that's getting 10, 20, 30 psi. It's not good enough really.
So what would cause that then?
Maybe the valve's not seating properly, maybe the rings. So, see what the front one is, but that isn't enough, so it's going to have to be barrels and heads off and have a look. First thing to do is check the valve clearances once we've done this. If they're too tight, then that'll do it.
So it could be something quite simple.
Could be. It says it's been rebuilt with new barrels and pistons, but that don't mean shit, does it? As we well know. Something weird's going on, because this cylinder head doesn't look like it's got a head gasket in it at all. Let's give that one a kick and see what we get. Exactly the same 30. You really want to be pushing about 70 with them cylinder heads.
Yeah.
What a rare oil tank, that's got the original. When we did the Dutch one, we didn't have the little bolt on the bottom of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, see that's it there. So it's an original radio suppressed bike, quite interesting.
Nice little touch, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's loose. That's loose. That's loose. And that's loose. So it's not valve seats, or it's not valve clearances. Realistically, it's heads and barrels off and have a look and see what's going on. Shouldn't be that tight.
So when someone says that the performance is sluggish and a bit lumpy, does that point to compression normally?
Not normally. Normally it's timing out or carburetor set up wrong. But this case we've checked it because he asked us to check the compression and there isn't any. So.
Oh, okay. That's why you're checking compression first rather than
Yeah, because
timing.
otherwise you could end up fannying around with a load of stuff and it isn't that.
Okay. So if the compression turns out to be, oh, that's all fine, then you'd move on to timing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. You've got to start at your basics, like we said, you know.
What are you looking for? Anything in particular?
Well, there's quite a lot of play in that piston. It could be stuck rings, it could be anything, so until you get it all apart and measure it up. Alright, well it has got plus 50s in it, but there's quite a lot of play. See that?
Yeah.
You're supposed to have like 1 or 2 thou, not
That's a lot more.
a lot. Say probably it needs a new set of barrels and pistons. By the time you've spent the money buying plus 60 pistons and fannied around getting it machined up, hear that? That's called piston slap. As your piston goes up and down, obviously it rotates that way, so your gudgeon pin comes up and down like that, and your piston rotates like that on it.
Okay.
And if you can do that and hear it, there is much too much play in there. You shouldn't be able to move that anywhere near that. That would be rattling like a pig when it's running, I should think. But there's no point in even trying to get that running as far as I'm concerned. You know, you've got to be sensible and diagnose these things as you're going along.
Yeah. So you could do all the other work, and if you didn't do that, it still wouldn't run right anyway.
No, that will never run right. Not at 30 psi, it just won't work.
And that'll be where it's losing that pressure.
Yeah, it's all sliding straight down the side of the piston.
Yeah.
Because there's so much wear in there.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and what in turn that can compress the bottom end. There's a scavenge pump system anyway, so it's not the end of the world. That's not a good start.
So this issue with the pistons, is that something you see quite often?
Yeah, I don't know whether these are repro barrels or not. Doesn't matter, the originals were crap anyway, so if you change the oil regularly, warm them up how you're supposed to warm them up and run them in properly, then they'll last a fair while. But you've got to remember it's war design. They're not designed to break, but they didn't give a shit if they broke. It's not like anything modern lasts 100,000 miles. You know, they threw it away and put another engine in it. You go and see your quartermaster. Say, give me a new engine. I've broken that one, and they just throw it in. Which is why you get so many with odd numbers and all sorts of weird shit. You know.
So aside from Harleys, what other bikes have you worked on before?
Lots of Kawasaki. When Gordon went through his phase of Kawasaki 6s.
Yeah.
Done all the British bikes you can think of, pretty much. I've never done a Brough Superior. I've done a bit of work on a Vincent.
Lots of Nortons, lots of BSAs.
All wartime stuff, yeah.
And how do those kind of British bikes compare to the Harleys?
Harleys are they're kind of like a bit more thought out, I think.
Okay.
They're very quirky, but some of the British bikes, it just looks like I'd gone to a parts bin and picked a load of bits out and thrown it together, you know.
Really?
Done a lot of work on the racing Yamahas when Dad was riding. Yeah, all sorts. Yeah, pretty much everything British I've done, I would say. Can't believe that engine's that loose.
Wouldn't you have heard that as he's riding it?
You'd have felt it, I would have thought, yeah. Jesus.
What's wrong with doing those up too tight?
They're aluminium heads.
Okay.
And they expand with the heat more than the steel. If you do them up that tight, you can rip the threads out the steel, crack the heads, do all sorts to them.
Oh. Again.
Yeah.
The picture's becoming a bit clearer now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's only got 12,000 on the clock. He said his mileage at 10,700 when it had new pistons fitted, so it's only done just 2,000 miles. You shouldn't have worn it out in that. So
yeah, but if it's been put together badly,
yeah, if the rings ain't gapped properly, that can wear it out. But that's worn out. It's not a little bit worn out. That's had it. Oh, I've got to take the belly pan off. I hate taking belly pans off.
So what's going to be the plan to get this right?
Well, new barrels and new pistons. While you're doing that, there's no point in putting the old valves back in it for the sake of 12 quid a valve or whatever they are.
Yeah.
So put new valves in it, and then it's literally just, once it's back together, a tune-up. You know, address the problems that he's written down that he wants looking at. I'll have to bolt the engine back in, obviously.
And time frame?
Well, once you've got the barrels and pistons, I'd normally like to put a hone in the bore and lap the valves in again. I mean, they say you can just fit them, but I'd prefer to hone the bore.
Yeah.
Put a cross hatch in it.
Do you send them off?
No, do it all yourself, that's fine.
Okay.
You just get a 3-legged honer, and you just go very slowly with a drill and just wind it. It doesn't take any metal off, it puts a cross hatch in it.
Okay.
Which seals the rings better. So you don't know what people have done. If they haven't run it in, you just get on it straight on it and ride it flat out. You'll just burn the pistons out, because you have a thrust face on a piston. So as it hits it, yeah, instead of just pushing it up and down nicely in that slot, the piston's coming up, doing that on the thrust face,
yeah,
and as it comes back down, it's doing that. So as it's getting, the more it wears, the more it accelerates the wear, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, now. See all the carbon in that? That's your inlet.
Okay.
There shouldn't be any carbon in that at all. That should be clean, shiny metal. So that should only have fuel coming through.
Yeah.
Which means it's blowing carbon back out of the carburetor, which is getting blow by on the rings, blow by on the valves. See all the burn around the bottom of there as well, isn't it? See, it's been cross-honed, but I think it's just everything's, it's almost like, I'll have to measure them up. It's almost like the barrels are plus 60 maybe. You don't know. See, those seem awfully loose in there as well. Shouldn't be able to get a piston ring off that easy. Well, ring gap isn't too bad. Seem worse than that, but they seem too loose on there to me. See, because they're that loose, see all the carbon behind it? It should be, I mean, they do gam up, but it should be fairly clean in there. Good talk. Just get 5 thou in that. That top compression ring, I'd say, is wrong. Good tool.
What are you doing to it?
It's called a piston ring groove cleaner. Just takes all the carbon out of it.
Okay.
So that's nigh on 100 thou. It's 122 thou. So if you've got 22 thou out on your ring gap, it's not just that way, it's that way on there. Remember I said that felt loose?
Yeah.
Hence why the bottom one was harder to get off. That just falls on. I would say the top rings are the wrong rings as well.
Next week on the workshop.
Well, that's probably enough. There you go. See the cross hatch in it now?
Yeah.